This is the Drummers Only podcast, brought to you by the UK's leading drum store.
Hello, everyone. How we doing? Drummers Only podcast number 72, and we're here with the wonderful Fraser West. Hello, Fraser.
Hello.
How are
Good
you?
to be here. Good, thanks. Yeah.
Good. So Fraser is local hero, plays for a wonderful Scottish band called Skerryvore, who have been on the folk rock circuit for about pushing 20 years now, right?
Yeah, 18 years this year, yeah.
Brilliant.
The band was kind of going a little bit before then, but before it was actually Skerryvore, so yeah,
Right.
but it's 18 years of Skerryvore. So.
Wow. And they've just landed their number one Scottish album, so congratulations.
Thank you.
Top
Yeah.
40 UK album.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I wanted to have Fraser on was because Skerryvore, as I understand it, are completely indie. So the history of the band is such that they have literally done it all themselves.
Yeah, pretty much up until the last 6 months when we did a kind of a services deal with Cooking Vinyl.
Mhm.
But up until this point, it's just been all our own doing and hard work, really.
Yeah. So to have sort of achieved that level of success yourself is pretty amazing. Can you run through kind of what that is for people? Because we've had this chat over the counter before, and I think a lot of people don't actually get what DIY means.
Yeah, I mean, starting off with the band, it was literally for fun in pubs and like very kind of traditional Scottish music, you know, and that grew into doing like weddings and, you know, birthday parties and all that kind of stuff until you start being more creative yourself when you're playing and you start almost kind of arranging some stuff a bit different. Then it's like you get a festival booking and then you're like, well, that was pretty good, so we want to start doing more gigs that are like that, but you're still a very small band and they're not really, you know, out there booking you for festivals, so you've got to try and find a way to do that yourself and put on gigs like that yourself. So you just go around the country like booking halls and venues and making posters and trying to sell tickets, you know, and that was back in the day before like real social media was a big thing, so it was all like word of mouth and just like hard work, and you know, you're doing the PA yourself and you're doing lights, you know, you're tapping your foot along and the lights are going and you've got the smoke machine yourself and all that.
Wow.
But just trying to get to grow it till the point where it's like, well, actually we can now afford to get a PA company come in and do the PA and the sound, you know, and it just kind of gets bigger and bigger from there. But it's pretty relentless, like touring, traveling, constantly doing gigs and being tired and,
Yeah.
you know, all over the country and stuff like that.
It sounds like it's like that kind of old school thing of basically a band drives around the country in van.
Aye, yeah, and it was an Astra at first, you know, like which ended up on its side at one point. So then we got a slightly bigger van and stuff like that. Until like, yeah, it is that, just loaded into a van, driving about, and you know, sometimes sleeping in hotels when it's kind of, you can figure it out, but then sometimes like just driving through the night somewhere to go somewhere else, or sleeping on the floor in the venue that you've just played in. We've done that before.
Wow.
That was a bit of a mistake. We should have had somewhere to stay, but we've still done it, you know, and it's, you know, not put us off. But
Yeah. I mean, would you have changed it?
probably not, because it's like, it makes you appreciate now being able to walk into a venue and your kit's set up and you've got your own technicians that you've been, you know, working with for years, and everything's just like, is so much better. We're still doing a lot of like hard work, you know, still we're not tour bus level, you know, so we're still doing driving ourselves and all that kind of stuff, but in terms of the level of everything, it's like, I don't think we'd appreciate that much if it had been different, or if you'd gone straight into that real sort of high level touring, you know, it could be too much for you, so you can endure more. I think you've got more resilience towards the whole thing, I think, so.
Yeah. I think as well, I mean, I've never done it really to any great extent like that, but it would put you in a sort of better network position for your fans and things as well, and the people that have grown with the band.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's how we got all our gigs at the start, was like playing in a pub, then chatting to people after it, you know, having a pint and like getting friendly with people, you know. So the amount of actual friends that we have all over the country from doing that kind of thing, and from years ago, literally from 18 years ago, when we met these people, who are now still come to the gigs, so in fact, just a couple of days ago, there was people just drove down to England for the last gig of our English tour there, and they were, some of our first fans, and it's
Right.
like, but they're really good friends now,
Wow.
and it is just that, it's like just people growing with you,
Yeah, it's a pretty unique experience, I think, So it was like, what's the thing? I think Jamie McDonald or something posted on Instagram that apparently a fan just turned up at our house, which is kind of wild, but there's that level of kind of hands-offness of it all where an artist like that is so big that there's no real connection. It's a kind of strange thing. It must be really cool to have these relationships.
Yeah, I mean, we'll still go out after a gig and sign merchandise and stuff like that, and we're there and we're still chatting to people because it still helps. There's definitely times it's like you're tired and you could do with just sitting in the dressing room or going back to your hotel and not having to deal with that, but we're not at a level where we can do that. It's still important to us to have a connection, with people, and it is good for us as well because you can see how much it means to some people.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, it sounds like you wouldn't, you've said it, you wouldn't really have had these gigs without these people. So it's this kind of two-way street, isn't it? And it makes them feel part of it. It's like a small army.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And it's like, there's a fan in the band, and she's, a friend now as well, but she set up like a fans Facebook page, which has now got however many thousand members, and they have like, she's organised a get together, like in Glasgow, but it's like she'll sell tickets and it donates to a charity that we give money to and stuff like that. And, and it's like, and they love it, the fans love like getting together and stuff like that. And so even that, it's just like, it's brought people together as well, not even just like for us, but with other things as well, so other friendships and stuff.
So you've been in the band for 18 years. How's the band evolved in that time from when you first met the boys to how, like, your latest tour?
Yeah. So I mean, I'm from Livingston, so grew up playing everything like jazz, rock, funk, brass band stuff, like all that kind of thing, but not really any traditional sort of thing. So then when I was introduced to that, and I think that's always what has kind of helped, is the difference in sort of styles between me and Alec, who's a singer and guitarist. He's from Livingston as well, and he was Eagles and Beatles and all that kind of stuff. That's the kind of thing. Eric Clapton. So the mix of that, like Foo Fighters and Eric Clapton, then mixed with like the traditional stuff, and that's what kind of made like a good sort of fusion, and it was a wee bit different and kind of natural as well, just the way that we did it. So it's gone from like four of us squeezing into a corner of a pub to now touring, like a lighting rig and screens and all that kind of stuff, and it's just a far bigger production, and again, it's still like, you still want more, you still always want to kind of see it grow, and you've still always got ideas, but budget can kind of restrict that a little bit, but we just kind of, and it's kind of why you keep doing it, you just want to keep doing more and doing the that kind of show that you want to do.
How do you maintain that? Because I think one of the great things about a band like your band is that it has connections to folk music, and folk music to me is very communal and very simple, but you've also got a production. So how do you marry the two? Because you obviously do it quite well,
Yeah, I mean, the evolution of the band and the way songs have started to get written there is a bit more of a kind of, I guess, a pop feel to some of the songs, and then the traditional instruments, whether it's like accordion and fiddle or whistles and even bagpipes. It's just how we combine those instruments into sort of pop songs, essentially. It's but and then we'll have instrumental sets as well, which are just kind of, if you could break the tune down to being a tune, and you could have a really traditional backing along with it, or you can do what we do to it, and you just think a little bit outside the box, and well, maybe not necessarily outside the box now, because there's actually a lot of bands that are kind of coming through doing that kind of thing, which is it's like, it's great, it's how it's become a lot more like popular and accessible to people and cooler, for want of a better word. But I just think we just try and put on a kind of show that we would enjoy watching, you know, that's exciting. And it's like you always steal from other bands as well. You watch things and you see things and you go, that'd be cool to do, you know, and it just works really.
Yeah. How's the writing changed? Or has it?
Alec pretty much writes all the songs, and especially this last album, because it was started off being written during lockdown.
Oh, okay.
Alec kind of upgraded his home studio and stuff like that, and obviously had a lot more time. So just kind of for his own enjoyment, he would write the songs and get them kind of produced to demos produced to like a higher level. So he spent a lot of time doing that. So that writing was different to when we're maybe a bit more together and writing stuff kind of together and stuff like that as well. But we always bring it all together and arrange it all, and you know, there's always ideas kind of floating around. But it's Alex Stolla's pretty much in terms of songwriting, and then the rest of the guys, they'll write tunes kind of individually, and the other ones that are probably more collaborative, just because it's like it could go so many different directions. Like I say, it could be really traditional or really rocky or really whatever, and that's where it needs everybody to kind of bring their thing and their ideas and kind of thrash it out until you get to, you know, what you're settled on. So
Yeah. I mean, I would imagine now it's quite intuitive.
yeah, a lot of it. There's always that, like, when you've been playing with people for so long, you almost kind of know what everyone's kind of going to do, and then that's a bit of a challenge in itself, and you go, well, that might be too similar to what we've done before. So and actually what you find sometimes is that you simplify things, you know, so you feel like you're trying to make things more complicated or more interesting, but actually simplifying some of what you do gets a better result as well, which is again something you just learn from playing so much and recording.
Yeah, I think we've all been guilty of that, haven't we? When you kind of listen back and like, I'm hitting the crash, and I don't know why I'm hitting it. It's just, and it doesn't sound great at all. So
I've heard old recordings of me playing, and it's like, you know, at the time when you're writing to Carter Beauford and Dave Weckl and all that kind of stuff, and then you can tell, you know, I'm like, that's ridiculous, you know, it's like, you know, I'm not as good as them, why am I even trying that?
Yeah,
you know?
and I mean, it has like zero place probably half of it, you know,
absolutely.
Kind of trying to shoehorn a fill in.
Yeah.
You know, like, wait, what about a 2-bar drum break? You know, for absolutely no reason.
Yeah, because so much of this new album is really this, like, tracks I'm like, we'll just play kick and snare.
I mean, there's one, I can't remember, I'm terrible with names when I've not with music. There's one track on the record that you up, it fades in, but it's just you playing a groove.
Yeah,
it's kick. It's 1 and 3, man, and it's magic.
It's Your Love, I think that's called, and that's pretty much the whole thing. It's just kick, snare, and hats the whole way through, and it's but it's so simple. But it's one of like the best ones to play live.
Yeah, it just has this drive, you know, beautiful time, beautiful groove, you know, and it, like, you know, okay, I can see why this works, because there's just this big bed for people to play on, you know. I think you've really taken, you know, you really understand where you sit within it, you know, because what's in the band, like 8 of you?
There's 8 of us in the band, so it's a lot, and when you've got like instrumental players playing 16s, you know, the tunes like reels or jigs or whatever it is, and then there's not really a massive place for me to then be trying to do all that as well. I mean, it's like, you know, I'll maybe do that a bit, but, you know, it's like I know my job, you know, in terms of like keeping time. It's not, I'm not a kind of choppy player anyway, you know, so it's just kind of keeping it like simple, and every now and again there'll be a bit of something that's like a little bit different, you know, but it's also what I enjoy, you know. It's like it's really the kind of stuff I enjoy listening to as well. It's like not necessarily really choppy stuff and really really intricate stuff for all it's incredible and it's technical and it's great, and but for me, I get more enjoyment out of hearing just like a great sound and a great feel, and I'm, you know, so I think that's what I just try and bring to the music.
Yeah, this is going to sound really strange, but do you ever have to write tunes, or do you have to think about writing tunes because of like the size of the stage you're playing on, and what will translate on a traditional Scottish instrument and what won't?
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. I mean, even again, the last album, there's some things that we're being a bit more brave with, in terms of actually how much. So we can be playing big stages, but how much you strip it right back
Right.
to being like. And again, it helps having your own lighting engineer, and he can keep the blackout going for as long as like you want the blackout to go to make people go. Right, they kind of quieten down a bit and they watch, and you're kind of controlling them with what you're doing. And so doing that on a bigger scale was a bit of a challenge for us, because we would think big stage, fast, loud.
Yeah.
It needs to be that all the time, and it doesn't. It's just how you try and work that. And I think pretty much whenever we write music, you're always thinking of how it's going to translate live, because that's how we will listen to it all the time. We won't sit and listen to the album all the time. We'll listen to it live, and that's how we'll do it. So you're always thinking of what it's going to translate like on a stage. And there's probably some songs that we might, maybe not from this album. I think we'll probably play all the songs from this album, but there's other ones that we've done where it's purely like an album track, really. It's not one that you would do live, because it wouldn't necessarily fit the stage or the atmosphere that you're in. So there's always that thinking of what it's going to be like, on a stage, and like say being a bit more brave now and going, well, you know what, we can get 2,000 people to be quiet and listen to what we're wanting to do, by just kind of trying to just kind of control the flow of it and stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of lost art, that, I think, trying to keep a tone. There's so many bands. We were talking about Holly Humberston earlier, and that live shows perhaps maybe could benefit from having more people on the stage, especially if she's playing outdoors or something, and treating that as the show itself is actually a part of the band. It sounds like that's what you're trying to create an experience for people.
Yeah, it is all that, because there's points that not everybody is on the stage either.
Right.
There's like the track that I was talking about, called Emergence, and it's just
It's
that
the first one of the records, is that right?
No, that's Eye of the Storm. It's a kind of really short, like, instrumental thing that's played on the whistle, but there's whistle, keys, bass. I do like a cymbal swell, and there's like a tiny bit of fiddle, so it's like the band's halved,
Right.
for that like one song. And then there's other tracks that we'll do again where it's like not everybody needs to be on the stage, which again is just something you've learned from. If there's not a part for you to play, then you don't have to play, and it's not a bad thing. It's like there's no point in you just adding something for the sake of it. It's just like everything needs to kind of have a place and work with the music, and that then helps like create the whole show and experience for people, just like the different highs and lows and ups and downs of the thing. We were definitely guilty when we were younger of thinking we need to just like keep it going here, like that constant 4 on the floor thing, and really high up tempo, and being worried that you were playing something slow, and worried that people were talking when you were playing something slow. But then you get a bit older, you realise that actually like people are paying attention, and then helping to kind of control things with lights and production and all that kind of stuff helps.
Yeah, I think I did film studies years ago, and somebody made the point one day that your brain can actually only take so much tension before it'll switch off. I think it's dead easy as musicians to forget. The audience have to have the downtime. We're so used to playing wedding gigs where you need to keep a dance floor moving, that you forget that doesn't have to translate when you're making a production. You can guide it however you want. I think, I've been out of that world of doing anything really creative in a while, so it's been a long time since I've had to think about pacing a set, but so much value in that.
I mean, we went in and did rehearsals before going on this tour, and again, you're rehearsing to just yourselves. You're not rehearsing in front of an audience, so you're always kind of second guessing a little bit how you think an audience will react. But then when you actually get out and start doing it live, and you start realizing, well, we need to do a bit more of this or a bit less of that, and now we're kind of pretty much in full flow doing this new set, because we'll figure out a set and pretty much stick to it. We don't really go off of it too much, just because we feel that we're better at performing it when you're not throwing in like a random old track, which is fine every now and again. Or if you're playing at a festival, say that you're playing like a couple of different appearances, you don't want to always do exactly the same set, but generally we'll pretty much tour the same set because it's just we get it to a point where it just flows the way you want it to flow, rather than it being maybe just a bit disjointed or points where it is just uninteresting for people. Really,
Do you change it for territories? So for context, you have travelled to the States, to China, to places like that, So do you have to change it depending on what audience you're playing in front of?
Not really.
No?
We pretty much keep it the same. I mean, like Scottish crowds are probably more wild than any crowds, that will play to.
Yeah.
And I think though I think we're confident in how it is and how we, perform it, that we don't really need to change it. There's certain situations where it's a much smaller gig that you're doing, and so it is sort of more acoustic or slightly stripped back and a shorter set or whatever. So you'll change that. But in terms of if we're doing a full kind of, it's now about 100 minutes long, the set.
Right.
If we're doing that full set, we'll pretty much just keep it the same because it works, and we just kind of, you just kind of have to make folk, like enjoy it in a way, just not worry too much, because if you were to change it, it then just might not translate in the same way, and people might not have the same experience. And it's like, if they don't like it, that's totally fine, because it's not for everybody. But
for sure.
But generally, like, we've got confidence that, like, if we go in and we play our set, it's gonna work,
Yeah, I mean, I guess there must be some territories that the minute you put a trad instrument on the stage, they're just all over it anyway.
Yeah,
So you could play anything, not anything, but you get the idea. You get what I'm trying to say. They're with you regardless of whether or not you think you played a bad show.
Yeah,
they'll be like, that was amazing,
yeah,
because they don't get access to those instruments regularly. How's things like gear on the road? Because I guess where I'm going here is that for the longest time, when you were coming up, you'll be able to control exactly what drums you use, exactly what cymbals you use. You're used to having the same gear all the time. But if you go to the States, is that a thing? Are you getting backline or
so here in the UK and in Europe, we'll pretty much use all the same gear. Like,
right.
we'll take our stuff out to Europe early and then fly out. So we're just using all the same gear. It's just consistent. All the same mics, all that kind of stuff. Because it's just all going to be the same. When we tour in the States, it's more difficult for us to do that. So for drums, it tends to be, I'll have like a list of, here's the kits that I'm happy to play, and it's I know that they sound good, and here's the ranges of cymbals that I'm happy playing, and then kind of sometimes that's what you get, and other times they go, well, this is what we've got. So you're playing like stuff that's not actually that great, and but you just kind of got to get on with it and like and deal with it. But so I mean, it'd be amazing to kind of again tour just consistently, with stuff. I'll take my snare, I'll take my own bass drum pedal with me as well, because they're like, they're just two things that's comfortable, and I know that's going to be the same all the time. But then everything else is different,
like a lottery,
pretty much.
Yeah, it must be strange. Like I think you talked about it. You needed parts when you were on tour. Was it last year before last? The pedal, you had a Yamaha pedal, and you were like,
yeah,
it's like, I need to have this fixed because I need to take it.
Yeah, I needed spares because I was playing at a festival in Dallas, and two drummers before me who had their own gear, their bass drum pedals broke, and I was like, what if mine breaks? I'm stuffed, because it's not like I'm at home and I could have a spare or something like that. Generally, there's backline, so there would be a spare bass drum pedal, but in the occasion that there wouldn't be, I'd be stuffed. So I was like, well, I need to take spare parts in case something breaks, So things like that can be a bit tricky, and even skins as well. It's like, I'll try and reskin my snare and stuff like that, but sometimes you've got to try and get one when you're away and stuff.
Yeah, there's been sort of tough. I don't know. Do you know Jay Hepburn?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jay was talking about that. He was touring and couldn't get heads anywhere.
Yeah.
Like that must be stressful when you're already stressed and you're trying really hard to keep two things consistent so that each gig, at least, very least, these are okay.
Yeah.
That I think that would be challenging, man. Do the guys have that same issue?
Well, only really like kind of amps. So they'll take all the sort of traditional instruments like pipes, accordion, fiddle, and all that kind of stuff. And in fact, even guitars, we take all them with us.
Right.
Keyboard player, he'll take his Nord. He'll use 2 keyboards, but he'll take his like big one with us.
Wow.
Because he knows that he can do the gig, all of the gig, on just that one
Right.
keyboard if he needs to. But then, generally he'll get some sort of like other Nord, that he can use as a, organ kind of thing. And then it's just amplifiers that can be different. Some of them can be totally fine, some of them could be wild, or not very good, whatever it is. But again, it's just one of those things you get on with it and you get by,
Do you think that's something that you can teach people, or do you think that's just a case of how you grew up playing? Or
I think some of it's probably how we grew up playing. Some of it's probably been sometimes being a bit too nice, a bit too like
Oh, really?
accepting of things, because we, you don't want to offend people and stuff like that as well. There's maybe other times we could have gone, this really isn't actually good enough, but we're kind of just not really like that, So, you could teach people, I guess. You could say, look, you need to be, you could sit Tony Royster Jr. down on an absolute shanner of a drum kit and it would still sound amazing.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not necessarily always just the gear, It's
But I guess maybe the thing I'm trying to get at is mindset, because like we've all done it, man. We've all turned up to a club gig or like a kit share thing, man, and you're handed like a Mapex Tornado and the heads are beat up and the floor tom legs won't go up properly high enough, and you're like, I could kick off,
yeah,
but nothing's going to get fixed.
Yeah, it's just I played a festival recently. I won't say where it was because if they see it, then they might get offended. But the drum kit just really, and all the drum gear just really wasn't acceptable. It was just like stands that were all put together from different types of stands, and threads had gone, so they done stuff. So it's like you're so limited in terms of how you can set up a drum kit, and for me generally it's like it's sizes of toms, it's like 10, 12, 16 like toms. That kind of size is totally fine, but they're like, so we've got this, and this is it. So you've got a 13 and a 14-inch rack tom, and I'm like, but that's useless. It's like, so you change. So I would never use like 2 toms that size. I'd take like the middle one away and just do. But you just kind of have to like, you just have to kind of get on with it. And there was a festival we did in San Francisco, and it was the thing of, there's another band playing on the stage, they're totally happy for you to use their kit, that's fine. I'm like, oh, excellent, that's fine. No details of what this kit is. And the guy had built his own like drum board. So it was like a wooden board which had like things riveted into it where the snare drum was, and there was no way of moving it, and where it put, so there was no way of moving anything, like even just like the snare drum or anything like that to the side, because it was like locked in a position in this board that he'd made himself. And the guy was about 6'4", and way bigger than me, and I'm like, oh. So you're playing the whole set just constantly thinking about trying to hit the snare drum.
Wow.
Rather than playing and enjoying it, because everything is so unnatural to how I would play the drums,
Could you at least move the stool height?
I could move the stool, I think, a bit, but it didn't massively help.
Oh man.
Really. So yeah, it was just a thing of just getting on with it.
Yeah, that's kind of brutal.
Yeah. So that thing can be difficult, but thankfully don't really need to do that often.
So like, do you like what if you cultivate a part around the way you set your drums up, man, and then you turn up to being like?
Well, some of it is because it's like I play like 3 rack toms, 8, 10, 12, and then because I find with instrumental stuff that we do, having the sort of wider range of toms helps, with just different sounds for things.
Cause music.
So when you then have to go down to like 2 toms that are huge, it's like you just have to kind of adjust slightly what you play. But generally, it's only me who really notices the difference. The guys in the band, people out the front, doesn't really matter to them as long as I'm playing in time, which is debatable as well. But
No, I get it. I'm just like, I'm running it through my head of like how I would react to that, especially when you're trying to be creative, and then all of a sudden it's like, all right, I guess it doesn't really matter how I think about it, and maybe I'm overthinking it. I don't know, but I think it would probably quite frustrate me. Spending a year
I
of
mean,
your life creating a record.
yeah, it's like saying to the guitarist, it's like, here you go, here's a guitar that you can use, but it's only got 4 strings.
Mm-hmm.
But you've still got to play the same gig, but it's only got 4 strings.
Yeah.
It would sound quite different,
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, major chords are now minor, and so on. Yeah. Yeah, man, it's a kind of weird old thing. It's a weird old thing. So for folk that don't know, I've never met. What's your story, man? Like, how did you come up playing, and what?
Just grew up in Livingston, and then round about that area, there's quite a big sort of brass band world.
Right.
In West Lothian, kind of and surrounding areas, and so that was my first introduction really into like music like that, and it was the drums that I wanted to play out. I would hear pipe bands playing, and I loved the sound of like the drum corps. My gran got me a pair of drumsticks, and I had a Lego tub that if I turned it upside down and played in the bottom of it, it sounded like a pipe band snare drum, like the Lego would rattle inside. And it actually did sound like really good, so that's like I taught myself things literally on that, and got the wee electronic drum pad thing, from my mum and dad, and grew up playing the trumpet as well, like all through school. I got lessons on the trumpet. I didn't get lessons on the drums, so did like my grade 8 trumpet and all that kind of thing, and then it was at leaving school, it was having that choice of what do you want to do, like trumpet or drums, and it was just like I just wanted to do the drums, I just enjoyed it more, and so I did the whole thing of playing in bands at school and a lot of the regional groups, big bands, all that kind of stuff, and then went to Strathclyde Uni, and did the BA Applied Music course there, so which is loads of people have kind of come through, and I've done like pretty well coming from that course, whether it's the course or they were always going to do well, I don't know, but and again, just like, and I don't think uni was the right choice for me anyway, it was performance that I wanted to do. I just always kind of wanted to play, so I joined a band called Lexi when I was at uni, and we did quite a lot of stuff like in Scotland and the UK and in Europe and stuff like that as well, and that probably taught me more than uni did, totally. Like touring and writing music with different people, and just learning so much stuff about being a drummer and being in a band, and then obviously just at that point then kind of Skerryvore started really, and that was that. So I did all your usual sort of like wedding gigs, and did pantos and shows and all that kind of stuff. Did one where I didn't get asked back, but it was like a 6-week run in the SECC,
right,
and there was a point where it was like a 4 or 8 bar drum fill that I just played the same thing every night. It just kind of kept it like simple, and I couldn't see the stage, so I didn't know that the dancers had choreographed a dance to this like kind of solo that I played, and then you're 4 weeks in and you start getting a bit bored, so I did something different, and it just threw all the dancers off, and like I got a bit of a bollocking for but even though I didn't know, that they didn't, so I didn't get asked back to that. But I was just, I think, purely, well, experience, but like financial as well. It's like it was a job you had to
totally
had to do it, and then some of the stuff I loved doing. It was great fun, and have met great friends from doing all that, and it's experience. I would tell anyone who's wanting to do music, as a career, that they have to like do everything they can, to figure out what it is that they're good at, what they're bad at, and just get that experience of playing with like loads of different people, because you find yourself in situations where you figure out what to do, or you just know how to deal with a situation if it comes up, whether that's like drum skin breaks or you drop a stick or something like that. It's like I've done plenty of that, playing shows, but you figure out how to deal with that. So it's kind of just like little skills that you will build up, on the way.
So, I mean, it sounds like you've done a lot of touring. What's the biggest thing you've learned from touring around?
Um,
Oh, so, okay. I'll split it into two. What's the biggest thing you've learned personally, and what's the biggest thing you've learned like professionally for playing through touring?
for playing through touring is just as well simplicity for me, like not trying to be unless it's like the type of music, if it's a real kind of prog thing or something that like involves something that's really really like intricate, and is just not trying to be like too flashy, because
Right.
it just doesn't always come off, you know. And it's just like, it's just way better. It's better for the band. It's better for listening, a punter, you know, listening and watching if things are just solid and sound amazing, rather than something going, well, that almost worked, you know. So I think just that professionally, and as a person, I think it's you have to really want to do it, because it's a lot of time away from family, and you miss things. You'll miss birthdays and weddings and you know, all that kind of stuff, and it's horrible to have to miss those things. But in music, if you were to not do a gig because of all of these things, you just wouldn't get anywhere. So you have to really want to do it, which I guess I've learned that it's like, I really want to do it, you know.
Yeah,
So,
totally. It sounds like it. It sounds like you've always kind of chosen that path.
yeah,
When there's other things around, you just keep coming back to this.
yeah,
Super consistent.
yeah. I think you just kind of have to do that, and you have to be, you know, realize that you have to work hard as
Right.
well. You know, it's not, you can be lucky and be in a band and somebody hears you and they go, I'm going to sign you in a record deal, and then all of a sudden you're huge, you know, and that would be nice for some people, but I imagine that'll have its own challenges, like being launched straight into being a really big artist and having all the pressures of that, and not having the experience before that of how to deal with the drunk folk in a miners club somewhere trying to throw a pint at you, you know, or like you don't have that experience of dealing with it. So
Yeah, and the difficult second album syndrome, where the label wants their album yesterday,
yeah,
but you've had 3 years to write your first one. You've got 6 months to write the second one, and it's never any good, is it? You know, the hard work thing, I think it's something we've talked about a lot actually when you've been in and out of the shop, and I think it's something that people don't really get. Like, to me, you guys making your own posters and all that, it's like, that's the job in it, and that's the part of it that people don't see.
yeah.
I mean, they turn up and they see a band on the stage.
Yeah, I mean, it's like years ago, it's like I would design the t-shirts. You know, I knew
Right.
nothing about it, but I could work clip art on on the computer. So it's like, you know, you would design t-shirts and you would do things like that. But now, thankfully, like Craig, who's in the band, he does all the design work, album design, poster design, like all that kind of stuff, like even visuals for the screen and all that kind of thing. But we're still doing that in house, and we're still like managing ourselves in house. You know, we've got agents obviously in different like areas and stuff, but essentially we still do so much of it ourselves. Like, you know, our own finances. We have our own record company. We do so much of that ourselves, and it'd be nice to have somebody that you trusted to do all that for you as well. But we've just grown up doing it.
Yeah, it's like, these are the things as a wee guy that you don't expect you're going to have to do. You think it's just rock on up and play some tunes,
Yeah,
but it's not. It's like, I mean, everything.
yeah.
Like, literally everything. Send your ticket allowance to whoever, you know, your guest list has got to go to this place. And
so I remember in the early days as well, like literally paying for tickets for your friends to come because they were students and they were skint, you know.
Yeah.
They'd come and spend a fortune at the bar, but they couldn't
couldn't
spend
put
like
money in your till.
£3 for a ticket,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
But even just things like that, having to do that, and I like you say because the guy Daniel in the band, he essentially tour manages and stuff like that as well, you know. So there's all that kind of thing to do, and when you go out to the States, there's all things to do with tax and different things. So we have got my dad is our business manager, and he thankfully deals with like our visas and all that kind of stuff, and the really sort of intricate, confusing stuff to do with American visas and tax and stuff. But Martin in the band, he does the accounts, so he's still got to kind of know all that, like, in and out, and still deal with that whilst on tour, whilst, you know, driving about and performing and drinking Jamesons and whatever else, you know.
Yeah, man. Can you imagine like that level of different skill set needed to be applied to a regular civilian's day job? You know, the skills that you've all learned, you could probably turn into businesses.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like you could turn making t-shirts into a thing just for you, just because you've learned that skill.
Yeah, well, I mean, Craig does actually do a lot of design now for other bands
there
and
you
different
go.
businesses, you know, in terms of merchandise or websites and all that kind of stuff. You know, it's like, so it is stuff that it can be broad. You know, we did do our own music festival as well. Like,
I was reading that.
was,
Was that for your decade anniversary?
So yeah, that was our 10th year anniversary. We just decided to do a kind of one-off, like, outdoor kind of one-day festival as such. And we thought maybe get like 1,500 people at it or something, and it was 6,000 people.
Amazing.
You know, came, and then we turned that into like a kind of 2-day festival. So you had like Katie Tunstall headlining and Top Loader
wow.
and
Jesus.
Hue and Cry and all that kind of stuff. You know, and it was like, it turned out to be really good. It got expensive to do, and you know, things to do with funding that, you know, you couldn't get and stuff. So it got to the point where it was, because it was us who was at risk, you know,
Yeah.
of all of that. But it definitely, like, you know, all these skills help to then go on and do things like that as well. You know.
So they let you take chances, essentially, in some respects.
yeah.
'Cause that's a massive chance to take, innit? You
Yeah.
know, if you become kind of fiscally reliable,
Yeah.
the bill needs paid at
Yeah.
some point.
And the
you know.
funny thing is, it's like people think you're absolutely loaded from doing when they're in a festival and they see this, like, you know, huge stage and they see thousands of people and they're like, oh, this band must be making loads of money. It's like, no, we're not.
No, because it's got to pay for it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the first year of it, actually, we didn't pay ourselves for it.
Right.
You know, like,
Mhm.
and it was only as it kind of went on, you know, things were a little bit better in terms of, you know, budgets and stuff like that. So, but yes, it's tricky.
So, listening to the new record, it sounds like you've started to use some electronics.
Yeah. Yeah,
just kind of new thing for you guys.
Yeah, it is new. I mean, it was always just, you know, acoustic, acoustic drums anyway. But we've now incorporated some electric stuff and triggers and stuff like that, which is actually great as well. It's just like,
You can get on with it.
yeah, and it changes the way you play a little bit as well.
It's kind of
But
crazy, right?
yeah, and then trying to figure it out, because it's like I did a little bit of stuff, music, computers, all that kind of, you know, studio stuff a little bit in uni, but not a lot to really know what I'm doing. I'm not a whiz on like a Roland SBD kind of thing, but I've now figured out ways of doing things and incorporating it in a way that is not obvious. You know, that I'm doing it for certain points. Is like, you want it to be that is the sound that you want an electronic sound or something. So, but in other ways, it's just like, it's just to add texture, you know, and a bit more sparkle to the music, and a bit that, you know, people might not realize it's why they like it, but they like the sort of, you know, the different sounds and stuff like that, you know. So
much of it's becoming unavoidable now.
yeah, I think if you want to be a session drummer at any point, you need to know what you're doing with something like that.
Yeah,
I think
you look at any festival stage and there's an SPDSX on just about every band's rider. You know, it's got to be there. You know, whether that's just to trigger some clap sounds or something, or to launch clicks or something. It's kind of mental. You know?
Yeah.
Back in the day, we used to just play the music. You know,
I know.
count it off and go.
I know, and it's like
Do you click the set?
Some of it is clicked
Because of lights and that kind of thing.
Yeah, lights and kind of, well, not necessarily consistency of tempo, but just keeping because if things drift a wee bit too fast, which they might tend to do, like excitement on the stage, it can kind of lose the feel a wee bit with some of the things. And you're talking pretty small margins, it's not massive, but just through time we've just realised that, you know, that definitely helps. Any sort of tracks that run along with it, obviously it just has to be kind of clicked. That's a fairly new thing for us as well. We were always quite against using tracks, you know, because you thought it was cheating. But then it's like, well, it's actually all stuff that we've recorded anyway, and it's like an acoustic guitar part underneath it, and it's a percussion or a sort of synthy part. It's nothing that's major, but we can't afford to add another two musicians to the stage,
totally.
like to do that kind of thing. So to get it sounding how we want it to sound, then we'll run tracks and
No, I get that. I was listening to Craig Reynolds today. He's got the Downbeat podcast, and he plays from Stray from the Path. He was talking about there are bands now who are running the bass drum part in the fills, and the drummer's essentially miming the gig.
right.
And I'm like, what's going on with people?
Yeah, it's like I wouldn't enjoy that.
No.
It's like I'm not doing a gig to like have it be played for me and make it easy. It's like I get the enjoyment from actually playing the drums and doing that thing. All the other stuff is just like stuff that I just couldn't play myself physically.
And I get some things, like if you're on a festival, you have a dedicated time slot. You can't really run that over, man. So if you can click it, you can time it. So okay, here's the songs we can play within this time because we've mapped it out.
Yeah.
But you're all still playing, Like if you go to see someone like Paramore, like there's so much of that's running in the fills. It's like hard to tell what's live and what's not now. So it's those bands that take it to a weird degree.
Yeah.
But they almost don't have a choice. The fans want to hear what's on the record.
Yeah.
And
like you say, unless you're getting a whole load of musicians on the stage to do it, then it's just more money, and it's more expensive. I remember seeing Biffy Clyro at Transmit actually.
Right.
And it was like, the stage, you can see the three of them, and you're like, there's more stuff coming from that. But then I saw the other two guys like are in the band at the side, and I was like, actually, it's clever. It's like it sounds good.
Muse do something similar, I think, as well. There's at least 3 guitarists floating about.
And it's like the guys I think now look a bit more part of the band. I think they're not quite kept in darkness and stuff like that. Which is cool. But I like the fact that they had people doing it as well. That was good.
And not just like launching a track on.
They've got a bit of a bigger budget than us, so
maybe. But also like it's the kind of heritage of those bands and your band as well. It's never created that way. It's never created to not be played live.
It's just there's just some stuff you just couldn't.
Especially the folky boys, like you're not going away with that.
Yeah.
Just turn up and play, man.
Yeah, and it would sound too artificial if you were to really, track according, like
beautiful
jig reel parts, all that kind of stuff. It's just like it would lose any sort of feel, and none of us would want to do it. We're doing it because we enjoy it.
Yeah, for sure. What's next for the band?
I've got a summer of festivals really, a couple of shorter tours in the States, August, September,
right,
and then back here touring down in England in November, and then we'll finish off the year in Scotland, December time. So
relentless, man.
It's pretty busy. We'll take October off, just a bit of a break and kind of recharge over that. But it's not a mental year. We've had busier years,
right.
But probably, as much as we don't want to think about it, we'll probably start thinking about another album as well.
I was going to say, you're in that cycle now of album promote tour.
A little bit, yeah. And it's like, you don't want to necessarily force things all the time, but sometimes you need to just go. We need to just try, and get stuff down, because you realise at the other end, it's better to have put the work in beforehand, So when you go, we need X amount of songs, then you've got them.
Yeah.
Rather than going, oh shit, we better write, 5 or 6 songs or however much it is. So, but that is difficult when you're touring so much as well.
Yeah. It's they say that about comedians, don't they? When you start to hear them talk about airline food, they don't have anything to write about because they've just been on the road so much. It's that balance between, going out and having some experiences that help you write music, but also doing your job, because that's what it is. It's your job. Writing music is literally your job now. So you kind of have to turn up. You know? Very, very strange thing. What do you think about Josh Freese being the new Foo Fighters drummer? Fraser is a huge Foo Fighters fan.
I am. I don't know if you can see it, but I've even got a tattoo. I called it after watching the tribute gig at Wembley, and I was just like, if it was me choosing, that's who I would choose.
Kind of the only choice, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean,
So I'm delighted. It's like I've been following him for quite a while. You know,
Yeah.
like, you know, recently playing with Sting and Offspring and that kind of stuff. But it's just like he's going to be like probably the best drummer you could choose for
yeah,
that. You know.
I think so. Him and Taylor were both Orange County guys and all that. You know, they kind of grew up the same way. And did he not use Taylor's drums as well? He was like adamant that it had to be Taylor's kit on the stage.
And that he did use
And like he didn't change how it was set up. And
yeah,
everything,
it was
you
just
know?
all set up the way he did it. So
Well,
I've not managed to watch the thing that they actually released.
It's on YouTube.
Yeah, I
It's
was
on YouTube. Go and watch it as well.
gigging. That was the last night of our English tour, so
Right.
I didn't manage to watch it, but yeah, I'll get on and watch it. And but yeah, I'm actually going to be playing about 2 hours away from them, and they're going to be in a festival in Chicago in September, I think.
Right.
And I'm playing like 2 hours north of them, you know,
On the same night.
on the same night.
Oh,
And it's just like,
no.
if I was
Man.
just not playing that night, then I'd
That's
easily
lousy.
just driven down and gone
Yeah.
and watched it. But
I've still never seen them. They're one of the few that are on the list that I've never got to see yet. Like I've never seen Pearl Jam.
yeah,
I've never seen the Foos. I think it's like
the Foo Fighters was my first gig I went
Really?
to see
Wow.
it's now the Academy, but it was the Corn Exchange in Edinburgh.
right.
And then actually on our winter tour in Scotland, we are actually playing like the same venue this year.
Oh, amazing.
But so there's like 3,000 people.
Was that with Taylor?
I was with Taylor, and it was when they had 2 drum kits on stage as well.
Oh, amazing.
And they did the whole like drum battle thing and
Aye.
stuff like that. And so that was like my first gig experience watching that, and I was just like, whoa,
Yeah.
that's like
Pretty powerful shit.
that's what I want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's good to see that they haven't chucked it, because I actually genuinely thought they would. I thought they would just call it, you know, like I didn't think they would stop writing music, and I thought, you know, Dave's never going to stop, but I thought he would maybe that's Foo Fighters kind of bookended and finished now. you
Yeah.
know, but yeah, I think it's absolutely the best choice they could make. You
Yeah.
know, the dude's a monster. Like, who else can play that and then go to like Bublé's album and Katy Perry's record and then do the Vandals? And
Yeah.
like, there's very few guys like him. you know,
Yeah,
so it
yeah.
should be pretty good, man.
No, it's great. But I'd love to see a gig that he's actually playing at, because it'll be pretty powerful, I think. So
Yeah, I think even on the live stream, they kind of like, there's a couple of, from Adam was talking about it in the shop, and there's a couple of times where they let him cut loose just for like a bar or two, and the whole band are just like laughing their ass off because he's just
Yeah.
playing ridiculous
Yeah.
shit, you know. Like,
because
got 2 bass drums now as well.
Yeah, I saw that. 'Cause it's one of those gigs where it's like you're going into a band with one of the best rock drummers
Yeah.
that's around anyway. So it's
Yeah.
like you've got to be good, you know.
Yeah, and I think he's headstrong enough, and he's experienced enough to know when he's right, and you know when he can sort of stand up for himself. And I'm not going to say get pushed around, because I don't think that's the case, but you know, like, just he knows how it all works.
Yeah, he'll know what he's getting into. You know?
Aye, and I think that Dave's smart enough to let the guys that know what they're doing do their stuff. You know, he's not going to teach. He's not going to talk them through how to play the parts, man.
Yeah,
you know, like
yeah.
you wouldn't be on the stool if that was the case.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Anyway, man, thanks very much for coming. It's
No
been
bother,
great.
yes, loved it.
Great chat. When are you playing in Scotland so that people can come and
So there'll be some festivals. There's a new festival in Glasgow called the Reeling Festival. So
Right.
that's in a couple of weeks' time.
brilliant.
And then we're doing Belladrum. We're doing a couple other ones that are kind of down sort of Dumfries.
Right.
I think one down Dumfries direction. But like Sophie Ellis Bextor and
Oh, cool. That's
Wet
a
Wet
blast
Wet
from
and all that kind of stuff. And then really touring wise, it'll be December.
Right. I'll make sure we add all the Insta handles and all that
Mhm.
stuff onto the show notes, and it's just at Skerryvore, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah. I'll
I should
add,
know that,
I'll add yours, I'll add the bands, so
Yeah.
that people can find the band and
Yeah,
check it
cool.
all out,
Yeah.
band. So thank you very much.
No
Been
problem.
a pleasure.
Thank you.
Catch you
Cheers.
soon.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Drummers Only podcast. Please leave us a review and make sure you subscribe. If you need any more information about us or any gear mentioned, head on over to drummersonly.co.uk and make sure you follow us on all of our social channels at drummersonlyuk. Thanks for listening. Peace.